Hello, Markus.
Hello.
Well, today it's a little bit difficult for me to start the topic because uh, what I'm what I want to talk about is probably the most common issue that I observe, I see, I experience. But at the same time, I want to frame it in a new way, and I need your help to do it. So, uh, it started when I was hearing from someone talking about the voices within that's self-critical, uh, reminding the person that she's not perfect, she's not enough, she needs to be more hardworking, she needs to be useful for people around and the society, and lots of self-blaming uh, statements. But at the same time, she was saying, now I know it's not coming from the real me inside, like my core, my inner being. And she was reminding me that it's not mine, it is mine, but it's like I can see a space between myself and these voices. So we have a lot of uh, theories, ideas in psychology about how we introject some of these critical voices from our parents, our society, and everyone. And we have lots of techniques how to work with these. But what was actually important for me uh, was not what I do uh, to address the issue, but it was how I would be with someone who is experiencing such thing. What would my intuition tell me about their experience when I'm really open to the connection with the person and how they are experiencing these feelings of, maybe I can call it self-hate, like self-dislike or something. How does that feel? How I can sense it, and how I can be with someone in a way that opens the space for healing. So I'd like to hear from you.
Well, we're always co-creating the relationship.
Mm.
I like the phrase liminal space, that space between us that opens up. It's like not only using your intuition to sense how to respond, but it's kind of like, if you are in yellow and they're in red, how much orange is arriving, to find a way to meet, not about the topic. That's not about what you're talking about. So not only is it sensing the importance of where you're coming from, but to establish resonance with the client so that they have a sense of where they're coming from, so that they're very sensitive to if they're coming more from thoughts and beliefs that just aren't true, or if they're actually resonating with where you're coming from, that quiet, caring place. So sort of like awakening their ability to sort of be gentled and speak from that place that you're inviting them to speak from, so that you're not speaking to them about their problem, and they're not speaking about their problem. You're speaking from some very intimate, sensitive place that would like to create some clarity. You can't do that alone. You could bring your kindness, you could bring your intelligence, but it takes their resonance with where you're coming from to start to awaken their capacity to come from that more quietened place, because the noise level goes way up when you're judging yourself. So if you're in a quiet place, it's not to encourage or convince them, but just to see if you can establish resonance with sort of the tone that you would like to be in the session with, this tone of just openness. I'm not talking about, speaking from, and then you not only model that, but you literally have the capacity to initiate the phenomenon of speaking from rather than speaking about, and helping them to quiet their noise level so they don't just hear their thoughts, but they have a more embodied sense of something, so that you're not convincing them that they're enough, but they actually start to feel quietened and gentle and have the very, very beginnings of a sense of being enough.
And it's interesting, I find myself becoming more quiet when the noise on the other side is higher. It's like I need more red to make that orange. But
so that has to do with being rooted in where you're coming from. And so if there's more pressure on the outside, in the horizontal plane of how to respond, you take that pressure and you move it into the vertical to be rooted even more deeply in where you're coming from, so that in establishing resonance, it's more of that vertical. And then you can work on the relationship and move into the horizontal and, establish trust. And it's about the relation. It's relational. But what you're doing is you're starting with being relational to what you're rooted in, to kind of not only model, but again, establish their, even if they're not consciously aware of it, their felt sense of how they can also take some breaths and be more in this kind of energy. And then when the two of you are more here, you've established this, then this kind of relational exchange starts to happen in the way that you hope, that they're more rooted in what precedes all of their distorted thinking, that I'm too much or I'm not enough. But that's that self-hatred that is usually thinking that generates emotions. And what we want to do is go deeper than the spinning emotions into deep feelings. So when you go deeper, you're going to a deeper place of feeling it's almost like feeling your core, so that you can come from it, rather than being caught up in the spin of emotions. Emotions are different. Emotions are more in the self, and you can get very wound up in your emotions from your thinking, versus you're wanting to, which it sounds like what you're doing is to not get caught up in their emotions or even their thoughts, and to return to something quite like this image of being rooted in your core, so that you can come from there and be able to hear better your response to them. There's this thing about entrainment. You want to entrain them just by the quality of your presence to what some people might call a higher frequency or a higher vibration when you're still. When you're still and calm, the brain waves elongate. Your brain waves elongate. When you're upset, your brain waves are like this. So when your brain waves elongate, you're able to think more clearly. And when the brain waves elongate, your frequency goes up. When your brain waves are like this, your frequency goes down and you tend to feel unwell. So it's kind of like you taking care of that, your ability to feel well and speak from that to kind of help entrain this frequency that they're in that might be just very sluggish to a higher frequency, or this brainwave that's very agitated to a more elongated brainwave where they can breathe and slowly do some sorting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes called the psychotherapeutic process.
Yeah.
Make some space.
Mm-hmm.
So your ability to relax becomes essential so that you can respond from that relaxed place.
Yeah. But at the same time, sometimes it becomes more difficult to respond to all the thoughts, all of those thoughts that are coming up, and all the voices and all that. But you want to connect on another level.
Yeah, I mean, if I have a sense of their core, I want to speak as much as possible to that sense of their core. The self has many levels. And if you're identifying with the more superficial levels of the self, that's, very connected to the personality and how they're, how they're moving in the world, being useful, it's like, to not identify with all of those thoughts that are in a more surface self, and to help them drop into a deeper sense of their essence, their core. And so I want to respect where they are. And at the same time, I don't want to speak to them in that place of high noise and surface. I want to respect that that's where they're now and come from something deeper than that. There's no attachment that they will also go deeper. Certainly not in that session, maybe another session, but their ability to relax is essential. And when you're anxious, sometimes, especially when you're alone, it just gets worse and worse. So you're there to increase the chances that they will find the center of the storm. The storm might be there, but sort of relaxing into the center, which sounds like what you're doing. They're bringing the cyclone, and you're saying, oh, I really need to find the center of the cyclone, that space between us, in that liminal space. Yes, I can join them, but it's my job to strengthen an awareness and participation in that center of the cycle.
Yeah, exactly. That was a beautiful description. Yeah.
And the way to do that is just to like it, just sitting there liking your ability to find stillness and calm in the midst of their anxiety. You can start out with empathy. I can really sense your panic. I've gone there. I have empathy, but you can't stay there, or you'll have two people anxious. So establish the empathy with them. Okay, I got it. you're really frightened. And then compassion is that movement from I sense your fear to I'm beginning to sense my ability to be with you and respond to what you're in. And I'm able to move into a sense of how I can bring a compassionate response. And then at some point, it moves to compassion and action from how shall we be together? So what shall we do in our time together that could be useful to you in your challenge or difficulty right now? So that's sort of that structure from empathy. I feel your anxiety.
Yeah.
Quickly going to compassion. Okay, I can be with this with you too. Okay, so how shall we proceed? You know, let's co-create how to be in this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sometimes like to say it, like to express that if I'm being silent or if I'm being more quiet, it's not ignoring or it's not stopping your process of thoughts or anything, but it's just finding a moment so that both of us not get overwhelmed by what's coming. And then it's like we go hand in hand in the moment to just stay.
Yeah. And Ashkan, I worked as a psychotherapist for almost 40 years, and I like being transparent. I will talk my process. I will say to them what I just said to you, like, when I'm quiet,
Yeah.
I'm just taking time to be touched by what you said and breathe and get a sense of, what to establish resonance with you. So I'll talk my process, because sometimes they'll say, well, how come you're so quiet? And it's my responsibility to talk my process with them, give them a sense of what's going on. It makes me think of when I go to the dentist. She's saying, okay, this might be a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, now I'm going here, and now I'm going to do this. And she just really talks every step of the way. And it's kind of like, okay, that's good. So it really just to, yes, you're entering the mystery and you don't always know where you're going, but you can have such a sense of where you're coming from when you're working, and to speak from that place of where you're coming from, saying, I really want to hear you. And at the same time, I know that you're upset. I want to hear that. And at the same time, I'd like to encourage you to be aware of another level that's underneath all that we can use to hold the upset. I'm not saying don't be upset, but be aware of what's underneath that. And you're talking your process, the word that you use, intuition, your intuition, your sense of how not only that you can hold them, but how both of you can hold this time together and to kind of speak it. And there's no technique. It's always client specific, moment specific, situation specific. So you're just saying it, as it's unfolding, talking your process, being transparent. And that has never failed me.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's so good for establishing
Yeah.
that connection. But okay, let's do this together.
Yeah. And staying connected.
Staying connected, and that they see that you are not trying to be helpful. That makes it worse. If you're trying to be helpful, it makes it worse. If you are setting a quiet, safe frame that might be useful, it's very different. They see you're not efforting, then they're efforting to calm down, and it just all escalates, rather than, okay, we've got some time here. We have an hour, we set the frame. let's see how we can meet together, and tell me more about what's getting in the way of your peace and quiet and okayness. What gets in the way? Creating some clarity about what's going on, and then say, okay, so how can we be with that? You know, which is genuinely saying, I don't know what we can do yet, but I have a sense of how we can be, which is to, just set it, make it clear that you're in a safe place, set the frame. And this shift, it really requires a shift from your need to be helpful, which they'll pick up on, especially if they have any kind of performance anxiety, that they want to please you and do something to be better, and it makes it worse. But to realize that, for them to realize that you are really just wanting to be present and set the frame for something that might truly be useful for their connecting to what's deeper than their panic, deeper than their low self-esteem. How do we go to that part of you that's okay, that already exists? And so your description of what you're in, that's what you're doing. You're going to the part of you that is okay. While at the same time, on another level, you are really resonating with how anxious they are, but you're not matching them in anxiety. You're aware of it, but you're strengthening your resonance with your okayness in the midst of what's happening on the surface, which is very uncomfortable for them. So your ability to relax becomes the number one priority, and proceed from there. Not efforting to communicate to them that I'm here for you. I'm here for you actually can exacerbate the situation, make it worse. It's not I'm here for you. It's I'm with you. Very different. I'm with you. Let's be together in a way that is nurturing and nourishing, and let's get clear on how we can be with what you're challenged by right now, and get clear about what the challenge is. Say more about what your challenge is. Let's look at this, and that changes what they're looking at, because if you're holding it kindly and intimately, what the challenge is, that's what changes it. Like Einstein said, no such thing as an objective experiment. How we're holding it changes it. So how you're holding it, and hopefully how they're holding the upset, is what changes it.
Yeah.
Not trying to change it, just how you hold the as is what changes it. So your quietude becomes essential to having an impact on what they're experiencing.
Yeah. Because you need to access what's within you. Number one priority, and relax into what's in you, and then provide a space to resonate from that level.
Yes.
Yeah.
And believing that you have the ability to respond honestly and kindly. You don't have to have answers. They have questions, and you're just communicating to them, okay, let's find a way to refine what your questions are, and to find a nourishing way to stay with these questions. You want answers. Let's refine them first. What are your questions? And let's be together in a way that's nourishing and not exhausting and depleting. Set this environment, this loving, kind environment that includes the intellect, the right use of intellect. Let's think about what causes fear, with kindness and openness and transparency. You are not there to give answers. You're there to hold a safe frame for them to refine their questions and find ways to stay with these questions that are sustainable. Just like as a psychologist or a psychotherapist, it's your job to find sustainable ways to stay with your questions about how to be effective.
Yeah, that's true. And that's very different from having some temporary suggestions. Like, I am okay, I am good, I'm this, I'm that. Things to say to yourself and lots of things like that. But yeah, having sustainable way of holding it's very different. Yeah, it's more
And
like a capacity. Yeah.
those short-term things are okay. You know, if they say, just take a moment to say, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are things that are just short-term. And then there's the things that take a lifetime to heal and just,
Yeah.
you
They
know,
can help for initiating something and sometimes for understanding what goes on the way, what doesn't let the person feel. So if I say I'm okay, but I feel like I don't want to believe this, it makes me wonder why. So it can be a starting point for me to understand how I feel when I hear that sentence about me from myself.
yes. I'm also interested in the meta perspective when you can say, I'm not okay. And what makes this moment very okay is that I have the capacity to be with me kindly and intelligently when I'm not okay.
Mm.
You know, this kind of, how do you be with it when you're feeling not okay? Can you be in that not okayness with incredible kindness and use your intelligence the right way? Or, okay, how shall I take care of this aspect or this part of me that can feel that really have really low self-esteem? You know, how can I hold that okayness with okayness? Okay, so this is my not okayness coming up. What can I
Yeah,
do? What can I
it
do?
seems paradoxical because you need to stay okay when you actually need it the most. Like it's a way of holding the okayness from a meta perspective when you're not feeling okay, and that's when you need it the most. So
Yes, and to not stereotype intimacy. Intimacy is not only, when you're so inside it. When you're able to just have a larger perspective and you're holding it from a larger perspective, you can have just as much intimacy in how you're holding the larger picture. Like, just sense how there's so much to you and this is just one aspect. So that dexterity becomes important to enter into what's painful, but also to be able to have that. I think it's part of what makes us healthy, that ability to go to the larger perspective and say, yes, there's more to me than this pain that I'm feeling right there, about not feeling enough about that. So maybe for our whole lives, we can feel that pain, not feeling enough, but we have the ability to have that dexterity of awareness, that I'm aware that there is something larger than this pain. And I just want to spend a little time with this pain. And that's where the expressive arts work come in. Let's open this up a little bit. And let's see. And so then it's called expanding your play range in the expressive arts work, that you have that dexterity to enter into those small painful ouches, and you also have the ability to go to the larger place. And we don't want to be stuck in the large. We don't want to be stuck in the transcendent. And we also don't want to be stuck in the specific. But we want to explore the specific and have that dexterity of awareness, embodied dexterity of awareness, so that we can explore that range of our reality, that we have a wide range, that we can, a much larger perspective, and to not use it to escape, not use the larger perspective as a coping mechanism. So I'll just go to the bigger picture, and again, not get stuck in the need to feel intense emotions in order to feel alive by going in and in and in. Like, I can feel intense emotions, and I can also feel this incredible peace and freedom from the larger perspective. And like having that range, like having that dexterity, and not be stuck in either one. And as a clinician, it's your job to sense, do we need to go finer and step in, or do we need to relax and open up and step back, And in the expressive arts, I want to find out which art form will help the client to go deeper. When I play the piano, I can go deeper and in. When I sing, I open up and come out, When I write a poem, I go in and go finer and finer. When I do something like photography, it helps me to, just open up to the beauty of it all. So just, again, bringing the expressive arts work along with traditional psychotherapy is it gives you a vehicle for entering, or a vehicle for stepping back. And to know with that client in that situation, what's the just right art form for helping them to enter, or for helping them to step back and have the larger perspective. That's what being a good clinician is about. What does the client need right now?
Okay. So thank you again, Markus. It was not easy to frame the question, but it's always nice to see how it goes as we speak. And at some point we feel like, okay, here's the frame. I couldn't frame the question in the beginning, but it's like we build the frame together from a range of places to observe and think about and talk about. And then at some point it's like, okay, here it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't want to stereotype the framing as well. For me, sometimes I think you started out with a framing that was more round, and at some point we said, this is what we're talking about. Then we created another, we opened it up again, and then, no, we're talking about this, and it's larger. And then we, sort of make sense of it, and then it gets framed more like this. And then we have another wave of exploring, and it opens up. So this rhythm of sort of a more round frame of, where are we going with this? And then, I see, making sense of it. So this rhythm of the sphere and the cube, or the circle and the square, becomes so important in sense making, moving into the unknown and then creating clarity. And then moving into the unknown again and creating clarity. That's how we refine our sense making.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the invitation to explore. It's always a joy for me to explore with you. I appreciate your heartful intellect.
Thank you. Some compliment.
Okay. So I will find this little button here to stop our recording, and look forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Ciao for now.
Bye for now.